Welcome everyone to a story that will grip your heart and keep you guessing. Where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment. New York, Lagos, London, or elsewhere. Your guesses about where this tale is headed are welcome. 2. Aisha Thompson steps into Lato, a dazzling Manhattan restaurant, aglow with chandeliers, her heart pounding. She's in her old Hudson Academy uniform, a white blouse and navy skirt, expecting nostalgia, but the room erupts in laughter. Her classmates flaunt designer gowns and suits, no uniforms in sight. Fueled by wine and malice, Chloe grabs a red wine glass and drenches Aisha's blouse crimson. The liquid dripping down. Yes, good. Cruel chance of go back to Africa. Echo, then. A sleek Rolls-Royce Phantom purr to a stop, silencing the crowd. What's next? Subscribe to catch our latest videos. Share your thoughts and stick around to unravel this redemption. The planes, wheels, kissed the tarmac at JFK, and Aisha Thompson exhaled her breath, a quiet prayer against the storm brewing in her chest. New York's skyline glittered beyond the window, a mosaic of ambition and memory. But for Aisha, it was a battlefield. At 32, she was a titan, Lillprogrammer at Nexus Global. Her algorithms, the invisible threads, stitching together the digital lives of Fortune 500 giants. Her glossy black hair cascaded down her back, catching the sunlight as she stepped into the terminal, her deep brown skin radiant, her striking features turning heads, yet beneath her poised exterior, dread coiled like a serpent. She hadn't returned to Hudson Academy, her prestigious alma mater, in over a decade. The memories were razor sharp. A Nigerian immigrant, her brilliance in calculus and literature, drowned by the cruelty of peers who saw only her accent, head difference, hair defiance. Aisha's high school years were a paradox of triumph and torment. She'd aced every exam, her mind a blade slicing through complex equations, her essays earning quiet nods from teachers. But her classmates, wealthy, entitled, and ambitious, made her pay for outshining them. They mocked her lilting accent, tripped her in polished hallways, pelted her with milk cartons in the cafeteria. Their laughter, a chorus of "Go back to Africa." She'd cried herself to sleep too many nights. Her uniform, a white blouse, navy pleated skirt, and blazer stained with shame. Her pillow soaked with silent vows to rise above. Now her life was a testament to resilience. Her corner office at Nexus, a throne built from the ashes of those years. Yet an email had pierced her armor. A class reunion at Hudson Academy. The invitation came from Lauren, her supposed best friend from those days. Her words dripping enthusiastically. "It'll be nostalgic." The message chirped, "Wear your Hudson uniform. Let's relive the good times." Aisha's finger hovered over the delete button, her pulse quickening. Nostalgie faha. Hudson was a crucible, not a scrapbook. The good times were Lauren's cheerleader, prom queen, always shielded by privilege. Aisha's memories were of betrayal, Lauren giggling as others taunted, her silence louder than the insults. But Lauren's follow-up messages were relentless. "Don't make me go alone," she pleaded, her tone tugging at Aisha's loyalty. "We'll have fun. I promise." Against her better judgment, Aisha relented, a flicker of hope, whispering that maybe, just maybe, time had softened the past. In her sleek Brooklyn apartment, Aisha knelt before a dusty storage box, her fingers trembling as she lifted the lid. There he was, the Hudson uniform, pristine as the day she'd packed it away. The white blouse was crisp, The navy skirt, neatly pleated, the blazer embroidered with the Academy's crest, a lion rampant, mocking her with its pride. She held the fabric to her cheek, the scent of lavender and old wounds rising. Her reflection in the mirror trembled, a ghost of the girlhood endured, her dark eyes fierce yet haunted. Slipping into the uniform, she felt the weight of those years settled on her shoulders, the fabric tight with memories. She smoothed the skirt, squared her jaw, and whispered, "You're not that girl anymore." But the mirror didn't answer. The flight to New York was a blur. Her mind replaying Lauren's promises. Like a broken record, Aisha could have declined. Her days were filled with boardrooms, her evenings with Marcus, her husband, a tech billionaire whose love was her anchor. She didn't need Hudson's approval. She'd rewritten her story, her name whispered in Silicon Valley with reverence, but something tugged at her, a need to face the ghosts, to see familiar faces without the weight of her title. She'd kept her success quiet with no LinkedIn boasts or flashy galas, and her wealth was hard-earned. From a broke college dropout phase, the uniform was her shield, a way to blend in, to test if the past could be rewritten. As the taxi wound through Manhattan's neon veins, Aisha's fingers gripped her phone, the reunion's details glowing on the screen. Lato, a glitzy restaurant awaited, a fortress of crystal chandeliers and velvet drapes. A far cry from the cafeteria where she dodged milk cartons. Her heart thudded a drum beat of doubt. What if they hadn't changed? What if Lawrence's fun was a trap? She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the city's pulse, its skyscrapers. A reminder of her ascent. The taxi stopped, and she stepped out, the uniform crisp against her skin, her hair a cascade of defiance. Lucia, too, loomed, its golden light spilling onto the sidewalk, promising elegance, but whispering danger. Aisha paused at the entrance, her hand on the glass door, the hum of chatter seeping through. She could turn back, hail another taxi, and return to her life, where she was unbreakable, but she'd come this far. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open, stepping into the glittering unknown, her heart a tight fist. The past was waiting, and Aisha Thompson, prodigy and survivor, was ready to face it. Oshua, she thought. The heavy glass doors of Lato swung shut behind Aisha Thompson, sealing her in a world of opulence and malice. The restaurant's grandeur hit like a wave. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across velvet drapes, their light dancing on marble floors. The air buzzed with perfume, champagne, and self-important chatter. Aisha's heart pounded. Her Hudson Academy uniform, white blouse, navy pleated skirt, and blazer, a stark contrast to the sea of sequin gowns and tailored suits. Her glossy black hair cascaded down her back, catching glances, but her striking features couldn't shield her from eyes turning her way. She stood frozen, a deer in a den of wolves, fingers clutching her clutch, the lion crest on her blazer, mocking her with false courage. Laughter erupted, sharp and sudden, slicing through the buzz. "What is that?" A woman's voice sneered, dripping disdain. Head swiveled, and Aisha's stomach plummeted. Her classmates, draped in designer labels, gawked as if she'd stumbled in from a costume party. The dress code, old school uniforms, Lauren had insisted was Ellie. No one else wore Hudson garb. The realization hit like a slap. She'd been tricked. Her trust in Lauren, a misstep into a trap. Her cheeks burned, but she forced her chin up, dark eyes scanning for an anchor. There was none. Lauren materialized, blonde curls bouncing, and the emerald gown shimmered, Her smile was too wide, teeth gleaming, eyes glinting with cruelty. "Oh, Aisha, you actually wore it," she crowed, voice a saccharine dart. She grabbed Aisha's arm, nails digging into the blazer, pulling her toward the table before Aisha could bolt. "Come on, don't leave. It's just fun." The words mocked, each syllable laced with predatory glee. Aisha's pulse raced, instinct screaming to flee. But Lauren's grip was a vice, steering her through the gawking crowd to a table at the room's heart. The table was a viper's nest. Its occupants, her high school nightmares. Chloe, the queen bee, lounged with a champagne flute, sleek, platinum hair, and a red gown clinging like a second skin. Her sharp tongue had once cut Aisha to ribbons. Now her smirk promised more. Ryan the jock sprawled in a navy suit, grins, cocky, as when he'd ruined her books. Ethan, lean and smirking, sipped a martini, eyes glinting with the cruelty that taunted her accent. They stared, amusement, a tangible force, their silence. A prelude to the storm. Lauren shoved Aisha into a seat. "Look who's here," she chirped, presenting a trophy. Chloe leaned forward, gaze raking Aisha's uniform. "Still a charity case." "Huh?" She drawled, voice a velvet blade. The table laughed, predatory. Ryan leaned in. "Bet she's here to bust tables." His grin was a challenge, daring her to crumble. Aisha's fingers tightened on her clutch, her silence a shield, but her heart thundered. She was a lead programmer at Nexus Global, her code running Fortune 500 systems. Yet here she was, the foreign girl they tormented. Lauren, playing out the doting friend, handed Aisha tongs for the table's grill. "Why don't you cook, Aisha? Show us your skills." Her smile was venomous. The act of setup to degrade Aisha hesitated, the metal cold in her palm, then took them, flipping steaks, her hands steady. Despite the humiliation, the sizzle of meat was drowned by Ethan's scoff. "What? You fix printers or something?" he taunted, assuming she was a tech drone. The table cackled, their laughter a time machine to her high school pain. Chloe flicked a shrimp at Aisha's blazer, giggling. "Oops, my bad. You're used to messes, right?" The crustacean stuck, a badge of shame. Aisha's breath hitched, but she brushed it off, refusing to snap. Lauren egged them on. "Oh, she's tough. Guys, be nice." Her sugary tone was a lie. Her eyes alight with malice. Ryan tossed a napkin, smirking. "Wipe up. Charity case." It grazed Aisha's cheek, falling to the floor. The crowd around them stirred, phones snapping photos, turning her discomfort into a spectacle. Aisha's grip on the tongs tightened, her knuckle paling. She'd come for nostalgia, hoping to reconnect without flaunting her success. At Nexus, she was a star, her algorithms saving millions. But here she was, their punching bag. The room pulsed with their amusement. Each jab a needle in her resolve. She flipped another stake, the act mechanical, her mind a fortress. She didn't need their approval. She'd built an empire. But the weight of their scorn threatened to crack her armor. The trap was complete. Lauren's betrayal, the uniform, the table's cruelty. It was a calculated ambush designed to strip her bare. Aisha's dark eyes flicked to the exit. A distant beacon, but she stayed, rooted by a stubborn spark. She wasn't that girl anymore, not the one who'd cried in bathroom stalls. Yet, as the tables, laughter swelled, her heart whispered a dangerous question. Had she ever truly escaped? The answer lay in the hours ahead. But for now, she endured a queen in a pawn's disguise, her strength. A silent rebellion they couldn't see. the clink of champagne flutes, and the sizzle of grilling steaks filled Lato's gilded air. But for Aisha Thompson, the sounds were a prelude to war. Seated at the table of her high school tormentors, she gripped the metal, tongs, her hands steady as she flipped meat on the tabletop grill. Each motion a defiance against the eyes boring into her Hudson Academy uniform, white blouse, navy skirt, blazer, felt like a target hits lion crest. A cruel irony in this den of predators. The chandelier, light glinted off her glossy black hair, her striking features composed, but her heart thundered, a drumbeat echoing the past. Chloe, Ryan, Ethan, and Lauren encircled her, their smiles sharp as knives, their laughter of venom seeping into her bones. Chloe, the queen bee, leaned back, her red gown shimmering like spilled blood. Her platinum hair framed a smirk that hadn't dulled since their school days. So Aisha, she purred, twirling her champagne flute, still scraping by. Ooh, that uniform straight out of a thrift bin. The table snickered, the sound low and predatory. Aisha's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes on the grill. The steaks, char, safer focus than Chloe's gaze. She was no charity case. She was lead programmer at Nexus Global. Her code, the backbone of banks and apps. But Chloe's words dragged her back to the girl who dodged milk cartons in the cafeteria. Ryan, the jock, slouched in, his navy suit, in his broad shoulders, a reminder of the boy who'd once shoved her into lockers. He grinned, teeth flashing. Bet. She's here to bust tables, he said loud enough to draw glances from nearby tables. Right? Aisha got to earn that free meal somehow. The group laughed, a chorus that tightened the knot in her chest. Aisha's fingers twitched on the tongs, but she didn't bite back. Silence was her shield, honed over years of enduring their cruelty. A nexus. She commanded boardrooms, but here she was, their punching bag, and they relished it. Ethan, lean and smirking, sipped his martini, his eyes glinting with the same malice that had mocked her accent. What do you even do, Aisha? He asked, voice dripping with condescension. Fix printers. Answer tech support calls. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, daring her to contradict him. The assumption stung. She'd built algorithms that saved millions. Her name whispered. In Silicon Valley, but Ethan's taunt reduced her to a stereotype. The table cackled. Lauren's giggle, the loudest, in her emerald gown, a stark contrast to her treacherous heart. Oh, Ethan, don't be mean, she chirped, her tone a mockery of kindness. Aisha's got skills, right? Lauren's words were a trap. Her smile, a venomous crescent. She leaned closer, her perfume clawing. Show us. Aisha, keep grilling. You're so good at it. The table roared, their amusement. A wave crashing over her. Aisha flipped another steak. The hiss of meat. Her only response, her composure. A fortress. She'd come to Lato for nostalgia, hoping to see familiar faces without flaunting her success. She didn't need their approval. She'd forged an empire from the ashes of her past, but their scorn was a blade. Each jab testing her resolve. Chloe set down her flute. At her, smirk sharpening. Seriously, though, that uniform, did you borrow from a maid? She flicked a manicured nail, gesturing at Aisha's blazer. This isn't a soup kitchen, sweetheart. The laughter swelled, drawing eyes from other tables, phones discreetly raised to capture the spectacle. Aisha's pulse raced, memories of high school flooding back. Her uniform stained with juice, her books ruined, her dignity a casualty of their games. She brushed a strand of hair from her face, her hands steady, refusing to let them see her flinch. Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms. I bet. She's still living in that dump apartment. He said, voice booming. Probably here for the free food. Ethan nodded, smirking. Yeah? What's the plan? Aisha, sneak some leftovers in that sad little purse. He gestured at her clutch. Its simplicity. A stark contrast to their ostentation. The table howled. Their cruelty. A sport. Each taunt a point scored. Aisha's knuckles whitened on the tongs. Her heart a wildfire. But she kept grilling. The act? A rebellion they couldn't touch. She was a titan. Her algorithms running the world. But to them, she was a ghost of their past. A canvas for their venom. Lauren, ever the puppeteer, clapped her hands. Come on, guys, give her a break. Her voice was syrupy. Her eyes alight with malice. Aisha's tough. She can't handle a little fun, right? The word fun was a dagger, twisting in Aisha's gut. Lauren's betrayal was the deepest cut. Her friendship, a lie, woven through years of shared secrets and hollow promises. Aisha met her chase, dark eyes, unyielding, but said nothing. The room pulsed with their laughter, the chandelier's light. A cruel spotlight. She didn't belong here, didn't want their world, but she stayed, anchored by a stubborn spark. She wasn't the girl they'd broken. Not anymore. But as their tones echoed, a whisper of doubt crept in, threatening to unravel the queen. She'd become the heir in Lato, crackled with malice. Aisha's hands, steady on the tongs, flipped meat with mechanical precision, her glossy black hair framing a face carved from resolve. Her striking features, deep brown skin, dark eyes, fierce yet guarded, betrayed, no crack. But inside her heart roared like a caged beast. Chloe, Ryan, Ethan, and Lauren leaned in, their eyes glinting with cruel delight. Each taunt a spark in a powder keg. The restaurant's opulence mocked her, its velvet drapes and marble floors a gilded cage where her high school nightmares played out. A new Chloe, her red gown, a slash of arrogance, flicked a shrimp at Aisha's blazer, the crustacean striking, the lion crest with a soft thud. Oops, my bad. She giggled, her voice a poisoned dart. You're used to messes, right? The table erupted, their laughter. A whip cracking across Aisha's composure. She brushed the shrimp away, her fingers trembling for a heartbeat before steadying. At Nexus Global, she was a titan, her algorithm saving millions. But here she was, their sport, a relic of their cruelty, dusted off for amusement. Her silence held a shield forged in years of enduring their venom, but each jab chipped at its edges. Ryan, his navy suit straining against his jock's frame, tossed a napkin at her face. Wipe up. Charity case. Andy sneered, the paper grazing her cheek before fluttering to the floor. His grin was a challenge, daring her to break. Bet that's all you're good for, cleaning up after us. The table howled, their amusement, drawing eyes from nearby diners. Phones raised to capture the spectacle. Aisha's pulse thundered, her knuckles whitening on the tongs. She'd come to Lato seeking connection, not conflict. Her success at Nexus, a quiet triumph. She hadn't planned to flaunt, but their cruelty was a time machine, pulling her back to stained uniforms and shattered dignity. Ethan Martini, in hand, leaned forward, his smirk ablaze. What's in that purse? Aisha. Food stamps. Bus. Fare. He gestured at her simple clutch, its modesty a stark contrast to their ostentation. Bet it's empty, just like your life. The table cackled. Lawrence's laugh, the loudest. her emerald gown shimmering as she clapped. "Oh, Ethan, you're awful," she chirped, her tone a mockery of reproach. Aisha's got dreams right. Her eyes glinted with malice. Her role as puppeteer clear. Aisha's jaw tightened, but she kept grilling. The hiss of meat, her anchor. She didn't need their world. She'd built an empire, but their scorn was a weight, pressing against her. Resolve, the cruelty sharpened. Chloe, emboldened by the crowd's attention, snatched a cocktail skewer from the table and flicked it at Aisha's blouse, the wooden stick bouncing off her sleeve. "Look, she's practically a dartboard," she crowed, her giggle a siren call for more. Ryan grabbed the cherry from his drink, tossing it with a flick of his wrist. It struck Aisha's hair, clinging briefly before falling. "Bullseye," he roared, the table shaking with laughter. Diners nearby joined in their chuckles, a chorus that turned Aisha's humiliation into a public game. Her heart raced, memories of milk, cartons and jeers flooding back, but she refused to flinch. Her silence, a rebellion they couldn't grasp. Lauren, ever the orchestrator, leaned closer, her perfume cloying. "Aisha, you're so good at this," she cooped, gesturing at the grill. "Maybe you should apply here." Dishwashers open. The table exploded, their laughter a tidal wave. Aisha's grip on the tongs faltered, the metal biting into her palm. She was a star at Nexus, her code, running the world. But here she was, their jester, forced to perform for their amusement. The room pulsed with their glee. The chandeliers light a cruel spotlight. She flipped another steak. The act mechanical, her mind a fortress, holding back the storm. The escalation was relentless. Ethan reached across the table, snatching a piece of bread and crumbling it over Aisha's lap. "Here's some charity. For you." He sneered, his martini sloshing. "Don't say we never gave you anything." The crumbs clung to her skirt, a mockery of her dignity. Chloe clapped, her nails flashing. "Perfect. She's practically a street performer now." The crowd around them stirred, some snapping photos, others whispering, turning Aisha's ordeal into a viral moment. Her chest tightened, the weight of their cruelty, a physical force, but she kept her eyes on the grill. Her composure, a silent defiance. Aisha's silence was her power, but it came at a cost. Each taunt was a needle, each laugh a bruise, threatening to unravel the queen she'd become. She didn't belong here, didn't want their approval. But the trap had closed, and she was its prey. The tongs trembled in her hand, her heart a wildfire. But she endured, a spark of steel burning beneath the humiliation. They thought they knew her, thought they could break her. But Aisha Thompson was no longer their victim. She was a force, waiting for the moment to rise. The gilded cage of Lato pulsed with malice, its chandeliers casting a cruel glow over Aisha Thompson's trembling hands. The tabletop grill hissed a faint protest against the roar of laughter from her tormentor's table, where Chloe, Ryan, Ethan, and Lauren reveled in their sport. Aisha's Hudson Academy uniform, white blouse, navy, skirt, blazer, was a canvas of their cruelty stained with crumbs and shrimp. The lion crest a mocking emblem. Her glossy black hair, once a cascade of defiance, hung heavy, her striking features locked in a mask of composure, but inside her heart was a furnace, each taunt a bellows, stoking the flames. She gripped the tongs, flipping steaks, with a precision that belied the storm within, her dark eyes fixed on the charring meat, a lifeline in a sea of venom. Chloe, her red gown a slash of arrogance, leaned forward, her champagne fluid empty, but her malice brimming. Her platinum hair gleamed, framing a smirk that cut like glass. "You're practically part of the decor now," Aisha, she purred, of her voice, a poisoned arrow. Maybe they'll hire you to stand there and take it. The table snickered, their amusement a whip across Aisha's resolve. She was the lead programmer at Nexus Global. Her algorithms, the pulse of fortune, 500 empires. But here, she was their plaything, a relic of their high school cruelty, dusted off for a new game. Her silence held a fortress, but the cracks were widening. Ryan, his navy suit, a boast of privilege, grabbed a cocktail olive and flicked it at her blouse. Catch, charity case. He crowed, the olive bouncing off her sleeve, rolling across the table. The table erupted, their laughter. A tidal wave that drew gasps from nearby diners, phones flashing to capture the spectacle. Aisha's chest tightened, her breath shallow, but she refused to flinch. Brushing the olive away with a steady hand, at Nexus, she commanded, respect, her code, a language of power. But here, she was their jester, forced to perform under their jeering spotlight. Ethan Martini Glass tilted, leaned back, his smirk. A blade. Bet. She's praying for a janitor job. He sneered, his voice carrying over the grill's hiss. Right. Aisha got to mop floors to pay for that sad little life. Lauren clapped, her emerald gown shimmering, her giggle of betrayal, sharper than any insult. Oh, Ethan, you're terrible. She cooed, her tone, a mockery of sympathy. Aisha's got grit, doesn't she? Her eyes glinted with malice, her role as orchestrator clear. Aisha's jaw clenched, the tongs biting into her palm, but she kept grilling. The act of rebellion against their attempt to unravel her. The air grew heavier, the crowd's attention a suffocating weight. Chloe, emboldened by wine and the table's fervor, rose from her seat, her movements deliberate. A predator circling prey, she snatched a glass of red wine from a passing waiter, the liquid catching the chandelier's light like spilled blood. Let's give her a proper reunion, she declared, her voice a siren call. Before Aisha could react, Chloe upended the glass over Aisha's head, the wine cascading down her hair, soaking her white blouse, crimson dripping onto her navy skirt. The table roared, a cacophony of cackles and cheers, phones raised high to immortalize the moment. The smell of wine hit Aisha like a fist, triggering a memory, a milk carton smashing against her head, its sticky contents matting her hair as classmates chanted, "Go back to Africa." The past and present collided, a kaleidoscope of pain that stole her breath. Her hands froze on the tongs. The grill's heat a distant echo, close, voice cut through the haze, sharp and gleeful. "Now you look like you belong in a dive bar," she crowed, her laughter a blade twisting in Aisha's gut. The crowd joined in their jeers. A chorus. "Run home, loser, don't cry." Now, Aisha's heart pounded, a wildfire threatening to consume her. She was done. The tongs clattered to the table, the sound a gunshot in her ears. She pushed past Lauren, whose fake gasp was a hollow performance, and stormed toward the exit, her sewed-in uniform clinging to his skin. The crowd parted, their taunts chasing her back to the slums. "No one wants you here." Each word a stone hurled at her back. Her hair dripped wine. Her blouse a crimson badge of betrayal, but her steps were steady. Had dark eyes, burning with a resolve forged in fire. She didn't look back, didn't give them the satisfaction of tears. The double doors loomed, a promise of escape, and she shoved them open. The cool night air, a shock against her wine-soaked skin. The laughter echoed behind her. A fading ghost, but Aisha stood tall, her spine still. She'd endured their cruelty once. She wouldn't break now. Her hand reached for her phone, fingers trembling. but sûr, ready to call the one person who saw her for the queen she was. The breaking point had come, but it wasn't her defeat. It was the spark of her rebellion, a fire they'd soon regret, igniting. The night air outside Lotto hit Aisha Thompson like a blade, sharp and cold, cutting through the wine-soaked weight of her Hudson Academy uniform. The neon glow of the restaurant sign bathed her in harsh light, her crimson-stained blouse and navy skirt clinging to her skin, her glossy black hair dripping red rivulets onto the sidewalk. The double doors behind her muffled the laughter of her tormentors, Chloe, Ryan, Ethan, and Lauren, but their jeers still echoed in her ears. Cruel, refrain, run home, loser. Her striking features, usually a beacon of strength, were taut with pain, her dark eyes burning with a fire that refused to gutter. She leaned against a lamppost, its cold metal grounding her as the city's pulse thread around hair. Manhattan's horns and chatter a distant hum against the storm in her chest. Aisha's hands trembled, not from fear, but from a fury she'd buried too long. The wine's acrid scent clung to her, a trigger for memories of milk, cartons, and high school hallways. But she was no longer that girl cowering in shame. She was the lead programmer at Nexus Global, her algorithms, the lifeblood of empires. A queen forged in resilience, yet the reunion had stripped her bare. Lauren's betrayal, a wound deeper than Chloe's wine. Her fingers slick with wine fumbled for her phone. The screen's glow, a lifeline in the neon haze. She needed him. Marcus, her husband, her anchor, the one who saw her scars and called them stars. Her thumb hovered over his name, her breath shallow, the weight of the night pressing against her ribs. She dialed the ring, a heartbeat in her ear. When Marcus answered, his voice was still wrapped in warmth. A balm to her raw edges. Aisha, to you, okay? He asked, sensing her silence. Her voice cracked, a whisper barely audible over the city's den. They did it again, she said, the words heavy with betrayal. I'm outside Lotto. Please, come. Marcus's response was instant, a growl that vibrated through the line. What? I'm there. In 10, the call ended, but his promise lingered. A shield against the night's cruelty. Asa slipped the phone into her clutch, her hands steadier. Now, the act of reaching out a rebellion against the humiliation behind her, the restaurant's door swung open, spilling laughter and light. Ryan's voice boomed, a drunken taunt carried on the breeze. She's probably calling an Uber to her slum. The crowd inside cackled, their phones, no doubt still flashing, turning her pain into pixels for their amusement. Aisha's jaw clenched, her spine straightening against the lamppost. They thought they'd broken her, thought their cruelty had won, but they didn't know the fire they'd stoked, the strength she'd honed in the ashes of their past. The sidewalk pulsed with Manhattan's rhythm, taxis honking, couples laughing, the city oblivious to her battle. Isaiah's uniform, sodden and stained, was a badge of survival. Each drip of wine, a testament to her endurance. She closed her eyes, the neon's glow seeping through her lids, and let the memory surface, not to wound, but to fuel. She saw the girl she'd been, head bowed, books clutched, dodging jeers in Hudson's halls. That girl had survived, had risen, had built a life they couldn't touch. Now standing in the shadow of Lotto, she was that girl, and more, a warrior cloaked in a queen's resolve. Her thoughts turned to Marcus. His image of Beacon, 6'4", chiseled, a tech billionaire, whose King Ventures reshaped industries. She pictured him in his Rolls-Royce Phantom, cutting through Manhattan's veins, his eyes fierce with love and wrath. He was her shield, but she was no damsel. She'd called him not for rescue, but for alliance, a partner to face the storm. The thought steadied her, her trembling hands stilling, her breath. Evening. She opened her eyes, the lamp post's cold metal, a reminder of her steel, her dark gaze fixed on the horizon, where Marcus would appear. The restaurant's doors opened again, Chloe's giggle piercing the night. Bet she's crying in an alley. She called, her voice a dart that missed its mark. Aisha didn't turn, didn't give them the satisfaction her tormentors thought they'd won, their laughter. A victory lap, but they were blind to the tide turning. The city's pulse synced Kat with her own, each honk a countdown to Marcus's arrival. She adjusted her stance, wine dripping from her hair, her uniform, a battle-worn banner. She'd come to Lateau seeking connection to fording by, but they'd given her war, and Aisha Thompson was ready to fight. These minutes felt like an eternity, but Aisha stood firm, that her heart, a drum beat of defiance. The neon sign flickered, casting her shadow, long and unyielding. She was no victim, no ghost of their past. She was a force, her call to Marcus, a spark that would ignite their reckoning. The night was hers. And as the city roared around her, Aisha waited, a queen in waiting, her strength, the silent promise that the tables were about to turn. The neon glow of Latau's sign bathed Aisha Thompson in a harsh halo, her wine-soaked Hudson Academy uniform clinging to her like battle armor. The crimson-stained blouse and navy skirt, heavy with betrayal, marked her as a warrior, not a victim. Her glossy black hair dripped onto the sidewalk, her striking features etched with defiance, her dark eyes fixed on the Manhattan horizon, the city's pulse, honks, shouts, the clatter of life thrummed around her. But Aisha stood resolute against the lamppost, a queen awaiting her ally. The laughter from inside the restaurant where Chloe, Ryan, Ethan, and Lauren reveled in their cruelty was a fading echo, their taunts, no match for the fire in her chest. Marcus was coming, and with him the tide would turn. Exactly 9 minutes after her call, a low purr cut through the city's den. A sleek Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to the curb, its black curves gleaming like obsidian under the streetlights. The crowd at Latau's entrance, a gaggle of reunion goers, snapping photos and sipping cocktails, fell silent, their chatter snuffed out by the car's commanding presence. The driver's door opened, and Marcus King stepped out, a towering figure at 6'4", his chiseled features sharp in the neon glow. His bespoke charcoal suit, tailored to his broad frame, screamed power, each step a declaration of intent. A tech billionaire whose King Ventures reshaped AI, finance, and real estate. Marcus was a legend, his name a whisper in boardrooms and beyond. Aisha's heart steadied at the sight of him, her anchor in the storm. Marcus's eyes, usually warm with love, blazed with a fury that made the air crackle. He strode to her, his presence a shield, and stopped inches away, his gaze softening as it traced her wine-drenched uniform. Without a word, he pulled a silk handkerchief from his pocket, its fabric catching the light as he gently wiped the red stains from her face, his touch a vow. "You're okay now," he murmured, his voice low, a promise woven with steel. From his car, he retrieved a cashmere coat, 200 美元, 000 of midnight blue elegance, and draped it over her shoulders, its warmth swallowing the chill of her sodden clothes. Aisha exhaled, the coat of fortress, her strength mirrored in his eyes. The AI crowd gaped. Phones raised, their whispers a rising tide. Marcus turned his arm encircling Aisha and faced the onlookers. His voice, thunder rolling over the sidewalk. "I'm Marcus, king," he announced, each syllable a gavel strike. "Aisha's husband, you. I thought it was funny to humiliate my wife." Gasps rippled through the group, glasses clinking as hands faltered. A woman in a sequin dress dropped her clutch, the sound sharp in the stunned silence. Marcus's gaze swept the crowd, unyielding a predator, sizing up prey. "This dinner," he continued his tone, "eyes, shadows, I'm covering it, every scent but you." He pointed his finger a blade, slicing through the air, landing on the restaurant's entrance. "You're about to learn what happens when you cross my family." Aisha stood beside him, her chin high, the cashmere coat, a regal cloak. The wine stains on her blouse were a badge of survival, her dark eyes fierce. Marcus's arm tightened around her, a silent vow. Then he turned to her, his voice softening. "A private oasis in the storm? Tell them who you are." "Love." Aisha met his gaze, her resolve a mirror to his strength. She stepped forward, her voice clear, cutting through the night like a bell. "I'm a lead programmer at Nexus Global," she said, each word a hammer. "My code runs your banks, your apps, your data. I've built systems that power half the Fortune 500. Jaws dropped, the crowd's smugness crumbling. A man in a tuxedo choked on his drink, coughing into a napkin. A woman's champagne flute tilted, spilling onto her gown. Aisha's words hung in the air, a revelation that rewrote their mockery. She was no charity case. She was a titan, her empire, invisible until now. Marcus's lips twitched, a dangerous smirk, as he surveyed the stunned faces. "You laughed at her," he said, his voice a low growl. "You threw food, insults, and wine. Big mistake." The crowd shifted, unease rippling through them. A few back toward the restaurant, their bravado dissolving. Marcus's presence was a guillotine, his power, a tangible force. He leaned closer to Aisha, his breath warm against her ear. "You're incredible," he whispered, pride lacing his words. Aisha's lips curved, a flicker of warmth in the fire. "Thank to you," she murmured, her hand finding his, their bond. A fortress, the neon sign flickered, casting their shadows long and unyielding, a king and queen, ready to reclaim their throne. The moment stretched, electric, the crowd frozen under Marcus's gaze. I thought, Aisha, weak, a ghost to torment, but they'd awakened a force they couldn't contain. Marcus's arrival wasn't just a rescue. It was a declaration, a promise of reckoning. Aisha stood tall, her wine-misted uniform a banner of defiance. Her strength, a beacon. The heavy doors of Lateau swung open, their golden handles glinting beneath the fractured light of the chandeliers. A hush rippled through the room as Aisha Thompson and Marcus King walked out, side by side, into the cool Manhattan night. Behind them, silence lingered like smoke after a fire. Aisha's wine-soaked Hudson Academy uniform no longer looked like a mark of humiliation. Draped beneath Marcus's cashmere coat, it had become a banner of defiance, of survival, of truth unchained. The night air tasted different, cleaner, sharper. Every step she took across the marble entryway echoed like a drumbeat of victory. The jeers, the cruel laughter, the taunts that had rained down on her earlier that evening had been silenced. In their place was something else entirely: respect, awe, and even fear. She hadn't needed vengeance to cut her tormentors down. Her truth had been enough, and Marcus's presence, towering and immovable, had been the hammer that sealed their fate. Marcus's hand found hers as they descended the grand staircase, his grip steady, unyielding. His power was undeniable, a force that moved markets and toppled careers with a single phone call. But tonight, his strength had been more than business. It had been personal for Aisha, for the woman he loved, the woman who had once been mocked in high school cafeterias, written off as nothing, and who now stood as the lead programmer at Nexus Global, the architect of systems that quietly ruled their world. They stepped into the waiting car. The Manhattan skyline glittered like a field of diamonds stretched across the night. Aisha leaned back against the seat, the tension finally easing from her shoulders. Marcus glanced at her, his dark eyes softening with something rare tenderness. He reached for her hand again, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. "You were extraordinary," he said simply. No bravado, no thunder, just the quiet conviction of a man who had seen her shine. Aisha smiled faintly, exhaustion tugging at the corners of her lips. "I only spoke the truth," she murmured. But in her heart, she knew it had been more than that. She had stood against cruelty, not with cruelty of her own, but with dignity, clarity, and an unwavering sense of self. And it had broken them by the time they reached their penthouse. The city's roar had softened into a distant lullaby. The glass doors opened to reveal a sanctuary high above the chaos, sweeping windows, framing Manhattan's glittering horizon, velvet sofas, and the warm glow of amber light. It was a space that belonged wholly to them, fortress and home, kingdom and refuge. Aisha shed Marcus's coat, trading the heavy reminder of the night for soft sweats. She curled into the deep cushions of the sofa, her glossy black hair falling loose around her shoulders. The wine stains were gone from her blouse, but their memory remained a scar that had already healed into something stronger. Across from her, Marcus poured 2 glasses of Bordeaux, his tailored suit replaced by a dark sweater, even dressed down. He carried the gravity of a man who ruled empires. But here, in the quiet, he was simply her husband. The first sip of wine was smooth, rich, grounding. Aisha traced her finger along the rim of the glass, her thoughts drifting back to Lahato. Chloe's shattered glass, Ryan's face crumpling as the truth reached him, Ethan's trembling hands, Lauren's disparate pleas. Their laughter had once pierced her soul, but tonight it had been their turn to flinch, to feel the sting of powerlessness. She hadn't wished them ruin, not truly, but they had sown cruelty, and now they were reaping its harvest. Marcus raised his glass, his eyes locked on hers. "You gave them grace they didn't deserve," he said, his voice low, steady, edged with pride. "And still, you broke them." A half smile tugged at his lips, but his gaze burned with admiration. Aisha laughed softly, the sound warm, unguarded, real. "And you," she replied, lifting her glass to meet his. "You were my shield." Their glasses clinked, a quiet celebration of survival, of love forged in fire. The hum of the city faded, replaced by the rhythm of their bonds strong, unshakable. As she leaned back against the cushions, the weight of the night finally lifted. She thought of her work at Nexus, of the algorithms that pulsed through the veins of industries, of the systems she had built from nothing. Those who had mocked her could no longer touch her world. They had underestimated the girl in the uniform, blind to the woman she had become. She turned her gaze toward the vast windows, where the skyline shimmered like a constellation of ambition. Each light was a story, a life, a dream, and among them, hers burned brightest. Tonight had been more than a reunion. It had been a reckoning, a reminder to the world and to herself that she was not to be dismissed, not to be silenced. Marcus crossed the room, settling beside her, his arm wrapping around her shoulders. His presence was warmth, promise, protection. She rested her head against him, her smile faint but resolute. "We're stronger than they'll ever understand," she whispered. And in the quiet of their penthouse, with Manhattan glittering beyond, she believed it with every fiber of her being. The night of humiliation was over. What remained was triumph, and the love of a man who had stood by her side, unyielding, Aisha Thompson was no longer the girl they remembered. She was a queen, and this city, this life, this future, they were hers to command. The consequences of that night did not wait. They struck swiftly, precisely, like a blade guided by Marcus King's hand. By the time the city woke Monday morning, Chloe's gilded career had collapsed. On Wall Street, her name had become a liability. The hedge fund where she reigned no longer defended her. One call from Marcus, one ripple through his network, and doors that had once flown open now slammed shut. Recruiters silenced her desperate voicemails. Friends stopped returning texts. The platinum perfection she flaunted at Lateau withered into panic. Ryan, forever, the jock who carried his swagger into adulthood, was next. His marketing agency severed ties overnight, citing reputation risk. In truth, no one wanted to be near the scandal. Marcus insured whispered across Manhattan. His confidence cracked. His phone went still, and his carefully polished smile dissolved into silence. For the first time in years, Ryan was small. Ethan's unraveling was sharper. His startup, once his proud creation, evaporated almost instantly. Investors withdrew funding, wary of a man tied to Marcus King's ire. The product hadn't failed. The market hadn't shifted. What failed was Ethan himself, abandoned, stranded, his calls bouncing into empty air. And Lauren, cloaked once in emerald, suffered the longest fall. Betrayal was always expensive, and hers cost her everything. Her PR firm collapsed within days, clients fleeing en masse. Her crafted poise slipped into frantic emails, messy apologies, and hollow posts begging for forgiveness. The woman who once sculpted reputations could not salvage her own. She had gambled on cruelty and lost. Aisha saw it all from the sanctuary of her penthouse. The news flowed in streams. Emails forwarded. Articles sans. Whispers confirmed. She had not orchestrated their ruin. Marcus had handled that. What she had done was far greater. She had revealed herself, her truth, and it had been enough to shatter them. She sat curled on the sofa, her hair falling loose, the wine glass steady in her hand. The taste was rich, grounding, but also a reminder the same deep red that once soaked her uniform now sat contained, tamed. Chloe's laughter, Ryan's jeers, Ethan's smirk, Lauren's betrayal. They no longer haunted her. They had been reduced to cautionary tales. Marcus watched her from across the room, his voice breaking the quiet. They thought they could break you, he said, low and deliberate. They never understood who you were. Aisha met his gaze, her lips curving with quiet strength. They saw the uniform, she replied softly. Not the woman, that was their mistake. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Their bond was more than marriage. It was a fortress. His power was unmatched, but it was her resilience that turned his fire into victory. Together, they had walked through cruelty and emerged, transformed. The penthouse glowed in warm light, a stark contrast to the coldness of La Hateau. Manhattan roared beyond their glass walls, but here there was calm, strength, love. This was their kingdom, carved not only from wealth, but from survival. The reunion lingered in her mind, not as shame, but as a turning point. She remembered the shards of Chloe's glass scattering across marble, Ryan's bravado folding in on itself, Ethan's trembling hands, Lauren's desperate words. Their cruelty had once felt sharp, unbearable. Now, it seemed fragile, pitiful. They were shadows, their illusions gone. Marcus had been the hammer, yes, but she had been the anvil. Every insult had struck her once, long ago, but instead of breaking, she had absorbed, hardened, and endured. And when the moment came, her truth had reflected their cruelty back on them, more devastating than vengeance ever could. She stood and crossed to the window. The city spread beneath her like a conquered realm. Her reflection stared back, but no longer. The girl hiding in Hudson Academy's bathrooms, she saw instead the woman she had become, leader, innovator, survivor. Tomorrow, Nexus awaited her. Her office towered above the city, walls of glass holding her vision. Her team waited, ready to push industries into new frontiers. What once felt impossible now seemed inevitable. She had carried scars from high school, but tonight had turned them into armor. Marcus joined her, his arms circling her waist, steady and sure. His presence warmed her, grounded her. He bent close, his words brushing her ear. "You're unstoppable." Aisha leaned into him, her smile serene but resolute. "We're unstoppable," she corrected, her voice carrying a vow. On the table behind them, 2 glasses of Bordeaux sat forgotten, their dark red glimmering in the soft light. Outside, the city pulsed with ambition. But in this moment, Aisha and Marcus stood as something more than powerful. They stood as proof. Proof that cruelty can be silenced by truth. Proof that scars can become strength. Proof that love, loyalty, and resilience could forge an empire. No enemy could shake. The reunion was finished, its villains scattered, undone by their own malice. The girl in the wine-stained uniform no longer existed. In her place stood Aisha Thompson, queen, visionary, flame, a beacon for all who had ever been underestimated, all who had ever been told they were nothing. And as Manhattan glittered endlessly beyond her window, Aisha knew with perfect certainty this was not an ending. It was only the beginning.